Good evening, everybody, and you guys are watching Backyard Blitz, brought to you by Backyard Sports Media. This is episode 5. Got a couple things to talk about this week, but with me, as always, starting with Mr. Gary Freeze on the horn. How's it going, buddy? You doing all right?
Man. I'm good. I'm glad we're back in the swing of this.
Back in the swing. We've got this is second week in a row. Let's see if we can maintain the streak we got going. And
Two's not a streak. We'll see next week.
Oh, shit. I like it. All right. With me, as always, the ginger bearded wonder. And I'm not talking about neck beard. We're talking about legitimate beard. That thing's masculine as fuck. He's going to go chug whiskey, make out with a woman, and go chop some fucking wood right now. Here he is, Andy Flint.
You know, you pointed out the redness of my beard, and we all know Gary's beard is more red or orange.
It's a
or
deep
something.
Red. Yeah. Yeah, you have like a wisdom red, but like you still don't have your soul, but like you're wise. You're wise.
I only have like half my soul. The hair on my head's brown. The hair on my face is red. I don't know, whatever.
Just all over the place, man. Just all, you know, pick a fucking team, Gary. Pick a team. All right. You got to commit. All right. So, first thing I want to talk about, definitely got to get into Earl Thomas, right? So he's been the topic of conversation for the last couple weeks. You know, we saw what happened between Seattle and Dallas. Going back to last year, that conversation where Earl Thomas runs up to the locker room, has a conversation with Jason Garrett. There was a news report that came out on Bleacher Report, I believe, that was talking about the coach is actually reaching out to him after the game and saying all that stuff. So there's always been this rumor, this little thing going through the grapevine talking about all that stuff. So I want to get into this. We'll start with you, Gary. What do you think about all this stuff, especially post-injury? What is this going to look like for his future?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, he's gonna be remembered for, giving the one finger salute to his coach. And I mean, honestly, the guy's played well enough to get paid and whatnot, but it's a business, and you're talking about a guy who's approaching or is 30 and on the back half of his career, especially in a position like that where speed is king. Plus, he's been somebody who's kind of laid the lumber, so his body's hurting as he gets through his career. And from the Seahawks perspective, I can see why they didn't really want to extend him. They gave him a contract. He made good money on that contract. But from his perspective, I can understand he wants that security, right? But, going out like that, while I think it's legendary, and I think we can all appreciate the emotion of the gesture and what's going through his head at that moment, because he is in the last year of a contract and whatnot. Now he's got to bounce back from injury and convince somebody to pay him. It's not the best way to go out. It really isn't. But, the Legion of Boom is done now officially. He's not coming back. One quick aside before I pass it, back. I actually would have loved for the Cowboys to have actually traded for him on Tuesday or Wednesday after that game, because tampering and they would have lost some first round picks. And as a Redskins fan, that would have been better for me. But, ultimately it didn't happen. And now we've got to, sit back and kind of wonder what could have been for somebody who's now lost the better part of 2 seasons to kind of the same injury, fractured leg. It happened in different ways, but same injury.
However, it happened on the same leg too, which is also important.
Yeah. That's a history thing for sure. And teams are going to look at that when they go through physicals and they try to bring him in. And he's going to struggle to find work, I think, next season.
I think that it's going to come to a matter of a couple things. One, he is 29. Which in NFL years, dude, that's you're getting there. I mean, you're well over your halfway point in your career. Usually on average, you have some people like your Wittens who stay on the team until they're about 105. And then you have other people who don't make it as much. They go a couple seasons. RG3 is a prime example. It looks like he's back with the Ravens. So that's interesting to see how that turns out. And then
he's hanging out.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not optimistic about his future.
You're not wrong. Earl Thomas is ancient by NFL standards. And,
right.
I mean, other than certain positions, and of course, there's always the anomaly, and Adrian Peterson looks like he's found the fountain of youth. But you're right. He's on the back half of his career.
Yep, and injury prone. So I think even if this Dallas deal does go down, it's not going to be looking like what he's anticipating it's going to look like. So, Andy, let's go to you. What do you think about this whole Earl Thomas situation?
Give me Earl Thomas all day, baby. I love it. Fuck him. I don't know, man. I don't.
I knew he'd be your dude.
There's not many things I respect more than like keeping it fucking real. And Earl Thomas kept it real because there's no pulled shades on the situation. He's felt this way. Everybody knows he's felt this way. And with the emotions running high from an injury, he showed us his cards, and it was awesome. I loved it. I mean, you guys have speculated about where he'll go. I think somebody's going to sign him strictly off of the name. I mean, there's the trouble that follows. That's why Dallas is the perfect suitor, because they don't give a shit. Cocaine in the locker rooms. Michael Irvin, what's up, baby? Things of that nature. But I love the gesture. I love. There's too many athletes who are camera trained these days, and while that's nice for their brand and for like the PC community, I just love to see like the moment of realness, because me personally, if I'm pissed, I'm gonna let you know, and I like to see it.
It's always nice to see
Gump
the
once
curtain
said, "That's
back.
all I gotta say about that." I feel like I say that
the curtain pulled back, as you said, and we don't get it very often from athletes, and when we do, it's always this kind of shock to the system, and then you get everybody that wants to talk about the PC portion of it. Oh, what's this going to do for his career? What's this going to do for his prospects of getting signed next year? And that's a reality, but I think on a personal level, you and I think Raul sees it the same way. Like this is him reacting in the moment emotionally, and it'd be hard for me, personally, to say I wouldn't do that, because I've lashed out at employers over fucking littler shit, right? This is his career, his livelihood, possibly, that they just didn't take care of him. So I definitely agree with you, but the reality of it is it is a business, and you're going to get a lot of that speculation over the next few weeks at least, while it's fresh in the memory, and then of course in the off season when he starts to look for work.
Well, and that's a part of it too. I don't ever want to hear anybody talking again about how, and this isn't just the NFL, but like how these players should be more loyal to the teams. I mean, the LEVEON Bell thing, really strikes a chord here. Teams treat these players in a certain way, and you talked about it. Him getting up there, Earl, that being getting up there in age, and it is one of those things. It's a business decision. So these players, at the same time, they've got to get theirs as much as the team has to get what they can out of a player. So, lay off them a little bit.
I think that's one of the things that a lot of people seem to be forgetting. I think they seem to be overlooking the fact that that's a two-way street. Earl Thomas isn't doing this out of nowhere. He's not flipping the bird to the Seattle sideline because it was unwarranted. There was something that provoked that. And so I think everyone's kind of looking at his behavior because that's what's on ESPN right now. That's what you see, plastered all over every big screen and every sports bar right now, is that he's flipping them. He's flipping them off. He's trying to talk to Dallas. He's a traitor, this and that. But like Gary said, the Legion of Boom is over. I think that Earl Thomas is in a position where his back's kind of against the wall. He's with a team that he doesn't want to be with, and he wants to come back to his home state of Texas, and he's interested in that. But there's also, even if the Cowboys have picked him up, he's still pretty marketable. At the end of the day, he's still Earl fucking Thomas. So,
look, in too little, too late news, Pete Carroll's out there sticking up for Earl Thomas for doing it, right? Cut him some slack. He was emotional.
Yeah.
It's a business, this, that, and the other. And yeah, Pete Carroll isn't the guy who makes the decision in the end, but I guarantee you Pete had some say in whether or not they were going to cut this guy a new deal, right? The GM's got the final say, but the coach has definitely got some say.
And doesn't Pete Carroll always say the right things? Like, we have these coaches, and the coaches, I'm sorry to cut you off, Raul, the coaches are more media trained than the players these days.
Yep.
And, I kind of think back, not to push the Lions into this point a little bit because he's in Philly now, but to think back like on the Jim Schwartz days of head coaching, there was a lot of things he did wrong. I called for him being fired because there was things about him that weren't head coach material. But the one thing I always liked with that guy is you knew what
you and I talked about this all the time.
There was nothing.
Yeah. You never knew what you never had to guess what he was thinking.
In Harbaugh's Jim Harbaugh's another one you say the same thing about, like keeping that shit real, hard on the sleeve. Yep. I like it. I can't not respect it.
Well, and I think you have coaches in every sport that do all that shit, right? I think Pop's a prime example. He's very no bullshit. He's media trained to an extent. but he's also very direct. And I think that Pete Carroll did a really good job of acknowledging the fact that, there's some mutual blame going on. He's acting out. And, I think that as a head coach, you have an obligation to your players, regardless of whatever that player's doing. You gotta defend. Now, I understand if this guy's beating up a fucking pregnant woman, then yeah, obviously, then you need to not condone that at all. But if this dude's frustrated because he just had a season-ending injury again on the same leg, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be super pissed given the circumstances. So, let's take this opportunity to move on and let's talk about these Kansas City Chiefs, right? So I'm going to jump in real quick and start with what I think is happening. So we see the Kansas City Chiefs this past Monday, right? Monday? Is that Monday? Yeah. Sorry, brain dead. Monday's shown up every day this week for me. So Kansas City Chiefs do not show up in the capacity that we've seen them all thus far this season. However, I think that something needed to happen to Patrick Mahomes in order for me to believe that he was the real deal. And that is that I needed to see him truly and unadulterated pressure, and I needed to see him take a monster hit. I wanted to see that. I wanted to see him challenged. I wanted to see how he'd do truly under pressure. I saw him do it at Tech. I watched it all the time. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he's a good quarterback, but is he NFL good? Is he the real deal? Is this Kansas City offense and or defense the real deal? So I think that after this week, they went up against a tough but okay defense. You mean, obviously, you always have to give credit to Denver, but I don't know. I think the jury's still out for me. I'd like to see him go up against a tougher team and see how they do against a defense like that. So, Andy, let's start with you.
Okay, so they win by 10 points. They win by 5 points. They have an 11-point win. I think an 11-point win is their most on the season. And for a high-powered offense, you are probably going to say, well, 11 points isn't a ton. Their defense, couldn't stop anything. It's kind of ridiculous. And the real test you speak of is probably coming this week with the Jacksonville Jaguars, the 3-1 Jags. They play a lot of defense, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I think you can say no, they're not the real deal, because we saw this. What was it last year? The Chiefs started out hot, like 5-0, something crazy like that. The Alex Smith Chiefs. Most of the same weapons intact that Mahomes has as Alex Smith had, pretty much the same exact cast. Kareem Hunt probably was a little bit of a more of a surprise last season for teams than he is now. So they had that working to their advantage. Tyreek Hill is insane, the fastest, man alive ever possible. Usain Bolt, step your game up. No, I'm just kidding. But the thing I want to say is the NFL is trending towards this untouchable offense. The defense almost doesn't matter anymore. I'm starting to believe that. Because if you look at the Minnesota Vikings, who, in my opinion, were the best defense in the NFL last year, they suck. Their defense, they're terrible. They don't exist. And I don't think that that's not by design. I feel like the NFL is trending towards this way of offense. We can't hit the quarterback, the Aaron Rodgers rule that we spoke of last week. So I feel like that makes the Chiefs' ceiling a little higher. I mean, we've moved from the 8-foot ceiling to maybe the 10-foot ceiling, and I have to see what happens. But I do believe that Andy Reid is kind of one of those guys who's kicked around long enough that he knows how to evolve, and I'm going with real. I believe in it. I do.
Okay. Well, I can definitely understand the arguments for why people think it's real. Again, I think my biggest problem, honestly, is I've never been a really big fan of people saying they're the real deal. They're really not the real deal, especially in the initial year that it happens, right? So Dak Prescott's a prime fucking example of that, right? RG3 is a prime example. There's a lot of quarterbacks where they do super great their first year. A lot of teams do great when they have all these new players. They've got this new approach to their offense. Their first year, they're doing great. All of a sudden, the rest of the NFL has enough time to get film. They study, and it's like, yeah, we figured them out. So, Gary, what do you think this is? Is this a film thing, or these guys a real deal?
Well, I'm going to start this off by giving a shout out to my boy, Louis Riddick from ESPN, for watching the show and stealing the stat from last week. In the pregame, he talked about the Broncos are going to play tight coverage, yada, yada, yada. I'm pretty sure he stole that from us and more specifically from yours truly. I brought the stat up last week. He had, 16 touchdowns or something through 3 games, or 12 touchdowns through 3 games, and 8 of them were in windows of bigger than 3 yards, and that's astronomically wide open in NFL terms, right? And we saw it for about 3.5 quarters against the Broncos. They were playing tight coverage, and Mahomes was shook. Suddenly, the Broncos went into a shell because they had a double-digit lead, and then they tried to clamp down, and they couldn't. They were tired. I don't know what happened. That defense for the last 8 minutes of that game was not the same defense we saw for the first 52 minutes of that game. It just wasn't. And Mahomes was shook for 52 minutes. He did not look like the same quarterback we've seen through the first 3 weeks. So I'm saying the jury's still out. I said it last week, and he did better in the first 3 weeks than I really expected to see from him. I did not expect to see him throwing accurate passes on the field. I thought he was going to be a tragically inaccurate quarterback in the NFL. He's done better than I thought. I'm not ready to say they're the real deal. I'm not even ready to anoint them a Super Bowl contender, to tell you the truth, because of kind of what both of you have brought up, right? Andy said their biggest win margin is 11, and all we've talked about is how they've scored 40 points a game through the first 3 weeks, yet they've only won by 11. They had a 27 or something like that point lead on the Steelers, and the Steelers almost came back and beat them. They had a chance to tie that game late or take the lead. I'm not a believer. I'm not a believer, on top of the fact that I'm not a believer in Andy Reid. They might win 10, 12, maybe 13 games, get into the playoffs, but
let me interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Are you a believer if they throw up, 28 on the Jags or more? Does that put you into believing?
If they come out and they show that they can do it against the Jags, I am a believer, because that Denver secondary is not the Jacksonville secondary. That Denver secondary is not the no-fly zone that they had with Talib and what they've had in past years with Ward and the other DBs that they've had on top of the pass rush. They've got a great pass rush. They do not have the cover guys that they had. And for 52 minutes of that game, Patrick Mahomes looked pedestrian. He comes out and light the Jags up. Yes, I will be a believer.
One of the big problems, real quick, because I know Raul's getting eager to talk here, is, Mahomes, I do agree with you that he looked pedestrian. The one thing he didn't do, though, is he didn't go out there and make a shitload of mistakes.
No. You're right. He didn't, but he looked pedestrian. He didn't throw a bunch of picks, but he was not throwing guys open. He was
absolutely. But I do feel like it's valuable, because in that situation, especially with a young quarterback,
you keep him in the game.
You might go out there and throw 3 picks.
Yeah. You're right. And on top of the fact that the big completion that everybody wants to talk about, where he was throwing across his body back to Kelsey, he was across the line of scrimmage. By like a half yard.
So
that don't matter.
Yeah, but hold on. No. Hold on. That play that you're talking about right there, they talked about it in the middle of the game. The rule is not that your foot can't be across the line; is that your foot has to be on. It has to be at least touching that line.
Any part of your body or the ball has to be even with the line of scrimmage. By a half a yard, nothing was even with the line of scrimmage.
I don't know. The replay I saw, his foot was clearly right on the middle. Like his
foot was a half yard past the blue line, and the blue line is usually behind the line of scrimmage.
I think I think that you don't even believe that. So
I do believe that because I saw it.
Yeah. Well,
and it was a leg.
Unfortunately, it looks like you haven't seen that shirt. So let's move on. LEVEON Bell. Let's talk about LEVEON Bell, the man who is sacrificing what all 3 of us combined couldn't make in probably 3, 4, 5 years. This guy is forfeiting that much per game. So let's talk about 1, when is he going to come back? 2, is he going to come back to the Steelers? 3, what teams you could possibly see him go to, right? Because obviously this has kind of stirred up some shit between the Steelers organization, that back office, and the individual, the man, the myth, the legend himself, LEVEON Bell. So, Gary, let's go ahead and kick it off with you.
Yeah, I mean, he came out and kind of leaked that he was going to report in week 7. And I mean, it's the bye week, so I guess he gets a week to get back with his team and get in shape. And I just you know, I think he's going to be with the Steelers. I think the Steelers are going to realize before, week 6 that James Conner is a good football player. He's not Le'Veon Bell. He's not Le'Veon Bell. And they mentioned it a little bit. I think they played the Sunday night game against the Ravens, and they were talking about it, right? James Conner is what, Randy Johnson was before he got a slider, right? When he was early in his career, he had one pitch and he tried to overpower people. James Conner's the fastball, right? Le'Veon Bell is the dude who's got the fastball, the curveball, the slider, the changeup, the dude that can change speeds, that can change a game. He's Max Scherzer, right? In today's Major League Baseball, he's Max Scherzer. He's the 5-tool Swiss Army knife that can line up in the backfield and run straight ahead. He can make you miss. He can run around you. He can line up outside. But
he's kind of all reliable.
Yeah, and Ben's come out and said some stupid shit about, James Conner's a more decisive route runner. Well, guess what? Le'Veon Bell hits home runs. James Conner hits singles. Okay, let's for lack of more baseball metaphors, right? But if Le'Veon Bell is not a Steeler, my prediction is if the Jets win this week, I bet you he's a Jet. I think he goes to the Jets because I think that they see the Patriots as a little bit wounded and they've got an opportunity. Honestly, I don't see another fit outside of that this season. In the offseason, there's going to be people tripping over themselves trying to sign him. But
all right, so real quick before we move on to Andy, what is your opinion about the idea that Le'Veon Bell to the Packers, right? That was a rumor that was floating around. That was an idea that was talked about probably 2-3 weeks ago. That was something that was talked about. So what are you thinking?
Fuck the Packers.
Maybe, but I don't see it. They've got running backs they're comfortable with. I don't see somebody who demands the ball that much. I don't see him going to an offense that's so dominated by a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers dominates that offense. Like the Patriots run the ball, they pass the ball to the running backs, but Brady manages that offense. He controls that offense, right? Rodgers doesn't control the Packers offense. He dominates that offense. Everything runs through him. So I just don't see it as a good fit. Maybe they do. I don't see it as a good fit though.
Okay, so maybe it's not necessarily that he couldn't go there. It's just more that it's not an ideal choice for him, and I'm sure the organization probably realizes that as well. Okay, so there's certain players that are incredible players in basketball, and you can't team up with a guy like LeBron because he is the coach and he is the head guy. He's the team captain. He's the fucking everything. So,
well, think about Aaron Rodgers as Flint's boy. If you want to go basketball, he's Russell Westbrook. He dominates that team. He dominates that.
Yeah, team. That's a definitely a better comparison for sure. I'm in no way, shape, or form think that Aaron Rodgers is the LeBron James of football. I give credit where credit's due, but not LeBron James credit or Michael Jordan credit to someone like A-Rod. I like Aaron Rodgers, good people, but hadn't sold me on that shit yet. And as long as you wear that Packer jersey, you're always going to be dead to me. Anyways, let's move on. Andy Flint, let's talk about Le'Veon Bell. What is the future for Le'Veon Bell looking like?
Well, first and foremost, that fucker better get off of his ass because I drafted him in a fantasy league and I'm about tired of this bullshit. No, I'm just kidding. But really, I did.
You want to trade him?
I would love to trade him.
My boy is paying a premium.
I don't have him in a league that you're in. But
some prime real estate.
I feel like to go back to where Gary was, real quick, with the Connors references. Connors, sure. I'm sure he's a great kid. Good, decent running back. The thing is when you emphasize on running the ball, which the Pittsburgh Steelers do have a good offensive line, and they most definitely emphasize the shit out of running the ball week 1 against the Browns. That game they tied. If you watch the game, you saw it. They did it on fucking purpose.
They tried to make a point.
They did. They almost tried to make a point to the point where they fucking tied a game. And it's insane to say, but that's what happened. And, Connors looked great. the problem is Gary used a baseball reference. I'm going to use a basketball reference. When you have a guy who's out there making free throws, and he might be great at getting to the line and making free throws, he ain't beating the Golden State Warriors because those motherfuckers hit threes. And Le'Veon Bell hits threes. I mean, you're talking when he was playing, the best running back in the league. Catching the ball, running the ball. His patience is second to none. Well, I know you're on the Alvin Kamara train, and listen, I'm not even mad at that. And Todd Gurley is phenomenal. We have a lot of great running backs in the league, but like Le'Veon Bell was that dude, and he still is that dude. I mean, he's a great running back. You talked about the Packers. The Eagles are another team that's been, rumored. We've been hearing about that. I hope that doesn't happen because I have JAA in a couple of leagues, and I don't want that shit going on. But yeah, man, feed the dude. I feel like we're missing out as fans by not seeing Le'Veon Bell play. And what if the Steelers don't have like the easiest road in the world? What do they play? Atlanta next? Is it Atlanta and then the Bengals? So like they might lose 2 more games, and they're going to be like what 1-2-1. Is he coming back then in the bye week?
After 6 weeks, that's a big hill to climb, especially with the way the Ravens look, the way the Bengals have been playing for the most part. That's a tough division right now.
I'm not sold, and I will not be sold on the Ravens being a threat. I'm not.
Not even if there's a fire.
Dude, not even a fire or a bear. Okay, I'm not gonna be fucking sold on these guys. Speaking of which, not even gonna be sold on the Bears ever. But let's move. Let's move. Honestly, I think that Le'Veon Bell. This is. It's at a point now where it's getting fucking petty. It's just getting petty at this point. It's a pissing contest. It's I can outlast two, and yeah, you're like you guys said, it's definitely the fans are the ones that are struggling we're suffering as a result of it. I'm not a Steelers fan, but I love watching that dude take a ball and fucking go places with it that you would never imagine were possible. He hits holes and angles and jukes and moves. I mean, the dude is one of a kind for sure.
His running style is definitely one of a kind.
And in the meanwhile,
did that just get real sexual?
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
I may or may not have like a man crush on him. Let's not worry about it. Let's move on. Look, it's my life. It's my prerogative.
Well, I mean, what they're doing right now, it's not even like who can outlast who. It's like who can hold their breath the longest, and the person that wins is going to be next to death, right? Like, they're both fucking idiots. Well, not both. I see it more from Le'Veon's perspective, but it's an idiotic fight that's going on. Pay the fucking man. Get him on the field.
It's completely worthless, honestly. What it comes down to is simple. It's completely worthless. Nobody's winning. I mean, the fucking Steelers aren't winning, and Le'Veon Bell sure as hell is not winning. So it's a lose-lose. Let's just put the egos aside. Let's move on. Let's come back together. We'll figure out this franchise tag thing, and we'll move on. I mean, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is simple. Connor is a participation trophy running back. He's gonna do what you need him to, kind of, and he's gonna be a damn good trier. As far as NFL standards goes, you're gonna hand him his participation trophy ribbon. You're gonna shake his hand. You're gonna take a picture with him. He's gonna fucking move on as a good backup to another team.
I think everybody loves him because he's a good story. Lymphoma survivor. I think it was lymphoma. He battled back. It's a good story, and everybody wants it to be good. But it's not Le'Veon Bell, man.
They love him. They love him because it's a good story, and because there's a lot of people who stand in the corner of fuck these whiny, overpaid athletes, and you'll never make the correct point to them. But it's that.
And a part of me gets that and supports that. Like, I believe that there's a certain element of Le'Veon's argument that's kind of bullshit. But at the same time, obviously you had to go and take the fucking high road. And now I feel bad because, lymphoma.
So here's the thing I would say to anybody who says, there's an issue with what Le'Veon's done. This isn't somebody who signed a contract and is now holding out for a raise. He's never gotten his big contract. He had his rookie deal, and he's been franchised back-to-back years. This isn't name your player, right? There's hundreds and thousands of references to players who have signed deals, get through 2 or 3 years, they're outperforming their contract, whatever you want. Those players you can call petulant. LEVEON, he's never had a chance to sign a multi-year deal. So to me, it's a different scenario than a lot of the other instances we see. So for me, I see it a lot more in LEVEON's favor than I do in the team's favor, in the NFL's favor.
Yeah, back to it being a business. So like the Steelers know exactly what they're doing. They know the shelf life of a running back is short, and they're beating him up for no fucking reason.
Yeah, I mean they're using his age to kind of blackmail him at this point because they know that they've got him in a position where where he's going to have to come back because he's under this godforsaken franchise tag. But at the same time, I think that Le'Veon's in a position where, I think we can all agree that his performance is warranted a big contract. It's warranted the amount of money that he's asking for. It's not at all. It's not even remotely out of line to ask for a raise. This dude is, he's on track. We'll say he's on track to be a Hall of Fame running back. He is incredible what he's capable of doing. And so I think the Steelers have taken advantage of the position they've had him in, and he was tired of it, and this was his way of acting out. You can talk all the shit you want about him, but at the same time, he can go to any other team. Once this entire situation blows over and he's free agent, he will go to another team if he chooses to. And he's going to get that big contract because you think that there's not 31 other teams that would love to sign this guy if they had the availability. You're talking about Le'Veon Bell, dude.
There are 31 other teams that would sign this guy.
And we're in 2018, and players are starting to own themselves a little more, and that's the trend, and it's a good trend, frankly.
It's a lot more branding. Yeah, a lot more branding, a lot more individuality. I think it's not even up to agents anymore. It's not, the creation of things like social media, Twitter, Facebook, all that other stuff. I think it's allowed these players to really have a voice, and you've seen it be political, you've seen it be business professional, and you've seen that humanitarian, all the other things. So I think that that's really important. And so I'm completely 100% on Le'Veon Bell's side on this. I understand that he's sacrificing a shit ton of money. The Steelers are in return sacrificing their record essentially for this lockout, this strike that Le'Veon Bell is on. And we wish you the best, buddy. We hope that you're well. In the meantime, Connor, you keep on trying.
Keep it on.
Yeah.
Nice garden, dig it.
That's
Joe Dierte.
References can be fit in.
Joe Dierte.
That's where you want to be when Jesus comes back.
The peanut's a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
Oh, goddamn whisker biscuits. Anyways, all right, let's move on. All right, so this week's salute to service is going to go to Army Chief Warrant Officer Taylor Galvin. He was killed in Iraq. He was killed in August from a helicopter crash, and they have still got an ongoing investigation about that. Unfortunately, they didn't release whether or not it was combat or non-combat related, but regardless, he's one of the people that's out there. He's protecting our country. He's trying to help make sure that all of us can sleep well at night. So he was attached to Delta Company 1st Battalion, 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment based at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. So rest in peace, brother. We want you to know that we have the watch. Cheers to you. Salute to service. So before we close, there's a few things that I think we need to talk about. First of all, we've got basketball is back. And we've got basketball back. I'm sorry, I've got a guest who's in the process of leaving. He's being extremely disrespectful. But anyways, we'll move on. Basketball is back. We've had a few changes in the offseason, some, little of this, little of that. So let's talk about that. Andy, I know this is something that this is more of your forte as opposed to me. So let's talk about it, Mr. Mode.
I like it, the basketball. It's a good time. Yeah. The season's coming up. We're starting a little bit earlier than we usually do, the 16th of October. this year because the NBA just said the fuck with Halloween and all their distractions. Usually the season starts a little closer to the end of October, early November even. I remember a couple years ago I went to a Sixers Magic game, and it was like the second game of the season, and it was like November 3rd. But, yeah, Kawhi Leonard in Toronto, Boston Celtics with Gordon Hayward back, and the phenomenal rookie Jason Tatum in his second year, along with Jaylen Brown, and, you know, hopefully a healthy Kyrie Irving. We have LeBron as a Laker, which, as many people say, I see on social media, is like it looks wrong. It's weird that it looks right to me. And I'm not a fucking Lakers fan. I don't even understand why it looks right to me, but it does. It's weird. Dwayne Wade reportedly entering his final season. Carmelo Anthony with the Rockets. It's going to be good fun. We'll touch on that.
Carmelo
LeBron Stars in
Anthony.
Golden State.
Carmelo Anthony with the Rockets.
Boogie is dead to me.
That's perfect because he's been dead to me since he was born. So let's move on. Let's move on to baseball as we approach the postseason.
From basketball, will Kawhi Leonard learn how to laugh before the end of the season?
That shit is fucked up.
I think that as many years and the ring that he has, I think all the time he's got in the NBA has just gone to prove to us that he is incapable of laughing. I don't know. Yikes. So as soon as I heard that laugh, I was like, you know what? We were right to let him go in San Antonio. I think it's just best. I think it was better. We don't need anybody who laughs like that. I don't know what league he thought he joined, but this was, the league of people who laugh normally. I think that's what NBA stands for. So going into baseball, as we are getting ready into the month of October, the postseason, Gary Freeze, what are you looking forward to in the postseason?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is going to be the field is so even. I mean, with the exception of probably the Red Sox, right? The Red Sox kind of ran away with their division, ran away with the American League, but down the stretch, they lost some games they shouldn't have lost. I think they were resting people and taking it easy, and they locked up home field and whatnot. But the wild card games have proven that this field is really even, and I think we could be in for some really crazy series, with the Cubs and Rockies just the last night going into the 13th inning. It's going to be a fun playoffs, I think, in baseball, because there's really just, outside of the Red Sox, there's really not that dominant team. And I don't think the Red Sox are unbeatable. I think there's 2, maybe 3 teams in the AL that the Red Sox really don't want to play. We'll see. We'll see how things shake out, but I think it's going to be interesting. You can see a lot of game 7s, deciding games down the stretch, which makes for good baseball, because those games with, as much as they use the bullpen and they move starters into the bullpen, it's interesting to see how those things shake out with coaching decisions. So I think we're going to see an interesting October/November with baseball.
I think baseball season, this is, for me personally, this is my favorite time of the year, because you've got so much things going on. You've got football in full swing. You've got a little early for basketball, but basketball right around the corner. You've got baseball getting to the peak, and I think this is
kicked off tonight too.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what hockey is. Can you define what's
Caps picked up right where they left off? I'll just leave that out there.
Yeah, I knew Raul was gonna fuck with you on hockey.
What's the country of origin of that word? Can you read it in a sentence?
Yeah, HOCKEYMOUSE. Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse. No, now we're fucked up on it, man. I watch SpongeBob.
See, now you just ruined this entire episode. Hashtag Team SpongeBob. Anyways, so I think we've got a lot of things that we've still got to talk about. So I guess we're gonna have to come back next week. But in the meantime, let's get to some closing statements. So Andy, we'll start with you. Andy, what is it that you're looking forward to this weekend, whether it be college or pro football, some basketball, baseball? What are you looking forward to?
I'm never looking forward to college football. I'm actually, it's kind of crazy. I'm looking forward to baseball. The way that the MLB shook out is kind of nuts to me. I usually don't watch a ton of baseball, but a couple like the Dodgers, the Rockies coming down to the end of it.
Two
You had
tiebreakers.
you had the Cubbies in Milwaukee, and they weren't necessarily the greatest games. I mean, I feel a little bad for Colorado because it kind of came down to LA was chasing that like 6 or 7 in a row of clinching, and then you had the Rockies who had won like 7 in a row, and they didn't quite get it done. But yeah, it was exciting. I mean, I watched some of those games, and
And they went and beat the Cubs.
I'm officially in it to win it. You know, court is in session. The judge.
I guess one could say he's getting balls deep into baseball, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, I'm always getting balls deep.
Chicks dig the long ball.
Yeah, the chicks do not dig that shirt, Gary. Gary, what kind of closing statements do you?
I'm going to leave you with one note and one note only. Your boy was in early on the Kamara train. I'm driving that bitch. First player in NFL history, 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving in his first 20 games, and I've got him in 2, count them, 2 dynasty leagues.
Okay, so you can raise your hands up and celebrate. I'm proud of you that you've joined the Kamara train. I'm happy for you.
Not joined, buddy. I'm driving that bitch.
Okay, I'm happy for you that you ended up in the driver's seat, but unfortunately, I feel like it's you joining into a limo and calling shotgun. It's like good job, but like the party's in the back, bro.
Yeah, but when your boy drafted him in 2 dynasty leagues in his rookie year, yeah, we're gonna leave it at that. We're gonna leave it. Best back in football.
Shut up.
Oh, well, I guess only a Redskins fan would celebrate another man on another team. So we will go ahead and leave on that note, only because I enjoy having the last word. As always, my name is Raul Herrera. We got Andy Flint, the ginger. We got Gary Freeze, the man who likes to sip Miller Lite looking IPA bottles. And we are Backyard Sports. This has been Backyard Blitz. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.